We've got Johnny Smith here. And so your son, I talked to your son on the phone a little bit, and he said you've got 40 years in the auto collision and
Yeah.
repair business.
Yes, sir. Yeah. I've been doing it about, right at 40 years, probably 39 in a few months, just right at 40 years. Started at 15 years old. Um,
Wow. Okay.
I messed with cars before then, just helping people around, but I grew up in a small town. So I was the kid on the bicycle running all over town, helping people. If they was roofing a house, I'd stop and help or join in or stand around until they asked me to help. So then I had a bunch of friends. I grew up in a farming community also. So I grew up on the farm off and on. So I was always around equipment. I had a grandfather that was really a great guy, really my hero. But like I said, he believed in working your butt off, so you didn't have any winters off. So if he was where most farmers would let their workers off in the winter, we was back painting equipment, cleaning equipment, greasing equipment, redoing it, anything he had to get a dollar out of you. But he was teaching you a lesson to work for a living, is what he taught you. I'm not gonna say I was a loner, but I was a kid that just done my own thing. I always hung around adults. I never hung around many kids. I played baseball with kids and things like that. But how my really passion started is I just always drew cars and drew things. Was always a big avid dirt track racer or a fan of dirt track racing, and as a kid got in with some of the big names early on at local racetrack here, and right outside of Memphis, Tennessee. So is where I used to go all the time when I was younger. So some of the big names I got into, and of course being around all those fancy haulers and pretty shiny cars, and then things like that kept me interested. So that kept my passion going. So that's kind of where it led me to. So then at 14, 13, 14, there was a guy, I'm not gonna call his name, but he's deceased now, but he had a shop in my town, and he was kind of like the do all. He would paint your car, put your plugs in. He owned a service station, a full service station there, gas station, I guess you say, change oil. So I kind of hung out at his place all the time, and he was always up there late at night. And that would be the place they would come shoot dice and play dominoes at the night. So it was kind of like an all day, all nighter deal. So back in the day, and it was just like I said, a small hometown deal. And he always had a car to paint or work on or something. So I hung out there, and that kind of where it all started. But then I moved to a town over from where I grew up at. Went to work at a local body shop there while I was working at a grocery store at 15 years old, and like I said, basically, I guess you can say the first car that I ever worked on. He's like, "Wow, how long you done this as a kid?" I said, "Really, just not too long, but just always knew what it was supposed to look like, knew what I wanted to get it to look like. Just always knew how to, what I wanted to do, and I just knew I just come up with the best method to get it there. And back in the day, the methods back in the early '80s, '83, '84, '85, we still mess with lead a little bit. I was I come in the era when lead was kind of leaving. It left in the '70s, but in the '80s, people still played with it. The older guys that had been in it since the '50s, they was retiring it, in the mid '80s and early '90s. So I still had some lead sticks and stuff we would mess with, and still messing with lacquer paint back in the '80s. So put you put 5 to 10, 15 coats of lacquer on, buff it out, and I've been in the world, and I never thought the day I would see back then I would see water based paint going on cars. You just never thought that. But
Yeah.
the world's evolved, and I can say that I'm lucky because I was in the business and fell into it or jumped into it right when the world modernized, I guess, and the industrial revolution took over. And in the '80s is when everything you started seeing sensors and seatbelt lights coming on and things like that. And I come in at the time when cars were just basic. When I come into it in '83, '84, you still worked on cars from the '60s. You had '69
Right.
Camaros and Mustangs and LeSabras and 225s and things like that. We still had those things around. People would still keep them, LTDs and Eldorados and things. So I come in at the right time. I got to mess with all those doors that weighed 200 pounds that you had to have a jack to put them on. And nowadays a lot difference. But yeah,
Yeah.
I feel that I come in the best time. I've seen all of it.
What do you
From
think about the quality difference between the paint nowadays versus, I mean, was there an era that you feel the paint was or is it more like custom shop paint like yours that's just typically better than
well,
you see?
yeah. I just tell it like this. There's a lot of perspectives that go into that. And you get to the OEs, the original equipment manufacturers, OEMs. They want to make the most money they can, just like anybody, like you do, I do. And of course they cut corners. You've seen the GM peelers and the Ford and all the Toyotas and things that are the white cars that are fading back, tying back, and you go out and rub them, and your finger turns red or white, whatever color it is. Those days they tried everything, but But nowadays it's to a point to where they're trying to make money. So I could show you things, and I think I'm kind of a shop owner. I'm just a single shop owner. I know there's multi shop owners out there that do big things, big money, but I'm not never been interested in big money or big business. I just always want to treat people right and give the customer the best bang for their buck, best dollar, you know. But the thing about the paint is what you're saying is the paint is better. Don't get me wrong, it lasts longer, it's shinier, but there's not much of it on there. If you look at these cars now, you'll see a bunch of streaks, what we call tiger striping, as these cars are painted. You can see it if you're sitting across at a red light or on a 5 o'clock sunset day when the sun's just setting is the best time to see it, or sitting under like a, say if you got a Sonic restaurant, 5 or 6 o'clock light and those fluorescent light is hitting on it and the sun's coming in from a real far angle on the side, you'll see a bunch of tiger striping stripes look like they go over the top of the vehicle. Like, that's how they're painted as they go down the assembly line. Well, they're putting just one coat of paint on basically, and the streaks you're seeing is where the gun is the closest to the car before the pattern fans out, and you'll see the pattern gets light out to the edge of it. And if you look at it hard, you'll see it mainly on your new Tahoes and Yukons and Dodge trucks. You'll see it when you look on the sides of them. You'll see a bunch of streaking down the side of them from certain angles. And that's kind of the quality where my son was talking about you. Don't get me wrong, cars are a lot better built. They're a lot safer. You if you don't understand what I'm saying is there was a video that run around like in 2015 of I think it was a 57 Bel Air and a 15 Malibu. They crashed them head to head or on the left side and left side. It just basically destroyed the Bel Air. In the Malibu, it just barely even cracked the windshield. The driver would have never been hurt in that car.
Yeah.
Whereas the 57 Bel Air, he would have been in the windshield throughout, the roof and dash, caved back into his lap, probably would have pinched him in half or, done some severe torso damage to him. So,
yeah.
But yeah, cars are basically safer, but, that's what you get into is we're having to pay for it also, and like I said, there's so many variables that come into that from what I've seen. But it goes back to like what me and my son was talking about. It's they want to make money, but they have to build these cars and put all this safety equipment on them to meet the CAFE standards of the government, and for mileage and safety and things like that. And like I said, I can't knock them. Cars are built way safer than they used to be, but there's so many parts on them now. And that comes into another thing that I think he said we was going to talk or wanted to talk about was the availability of parts.
Yeah,
Man, we could talk all day, and just I could ramble and talk about this subject or that subject, and we could never get out of one. You never know we get into another one because there's just so many things happening, so many variables. The world's changed, and my industry changes. It used to be every 3 to 5 years we would change welders or change glues or sandpaper or paint, but now it's down to like monthly.
Oh, wow.
And the OE procedures that I use, if I repaired your car, say you had a 25 Denali, come in here, we would pull the OE procedures, check it out, and people say, oh, I'll just say, we have to pay for that stuff. We have to pay all the OEs for these procedures. We don't just get them give to us, and they're yearly subscriptions, or you can pay per vehicle or monthly, but they're pretty costly, So if you work on 3 or 4 vehicles a month of a GM, Toyota, Nissan, or whatever, that's all you work on. It's not worthy you to pay a yearly subscription. Some of these things are anywhere from $2,800, some of them up to $8,000 a year, for these procedures, just for information for me to learn how to work or to know what to do with this car. So if I was going to put a quarter panel on that vehicle, I go the procedures. Well, that stuff changes daily because like in 2015, Ford come out with the new aluminum trucks. Everyone knows they went to, aluminum in 15, and the F-150 bed panel changed 3 to 4 times that year. And like I said, anything I say here is simply my opinion. These are not factual statements other than my opinion and from my experience and what I've experienced throughout my life. So, and my business. So understand that also. And people that listen to this will understand that, if you're not fixing vehicles by OE procedures, you're basically butchering vehicles because you need to follow the procedures because, insurance companies and older technicians that think they know all the rules and the best ways to do them, and there's so many different ideologies out there about, intrusion on the vehicle, and you need to straighten this panel instead of replacing it and cutting in the vehicle, or total losses on every vehicle. There's just so many variables, man, that we could go on and get into talking to that the I guess you said the real public don't know what's happening,
Yeah. I have no idea about that world. I kind of have generally seen it from afar, or maybe you get exposed to it with, if you have an accident and then your insurance company like your son was saying, they're going to try to guide you to their preferred
They are,
body
yeah.
shop, and he
You
was
know, and
saying,
you're right, and that's what we call steering. You know, and that's the Anti-Steering Act. You know, and it's there are actually laws against that. But you know, as well as I know, just like any other book, you know, there's depending on how you interpret it, there's different interpretations, and you can read one sentence, and I can read one sentence, and we get two different meanings out of it. There is one way to fix a vehicle, and that's correctly. You know, and depends on if your family's in it or my family's in it, or you know, it doesn't matter who's in it, is one way to fix, and that's what I've always said. People say there's more ways to fix a car. Well, I disagree, because there's the right way, and what that way is the closest, as close to humanly possible as you could fix it the way it was built from the factory. You know,
right,
uh, may not be right, because people say, well, if you go back, you're not supposed to fix them at all. Well, yeah, you that's an argument too, but as close as humanly possible as the person who built the vehicle says it should be fixed, and that's what I agree with. You know, because I would never argue. Some of these engineers, we know there's just like your past videos of the transmission issues, you know, and all these cars, all these recalls. Yeah, these engineers, they're not trying to build cars to inherently tear up, but they get an idea going. They try to, you know, they try to do it. And don't get me wrong, I know they try to build them cheap, but they also try to build them to last, because I can give you survey after survey where in my industry in the last 10 years, just from a bad shop fixing a car, a person will go change brands of cars. So if you say you drove a
mm,
Nissan, and the shop done a bad job on it, and the person has a bad experience, and the car's wobbling or air leaking around the door or paint don't match, well, that person will go trade brands of cars. He don't really know why. He just pissed off at that car, because so he'll go change brands to a whole nother brand. And that's been proven through statistics and surveys from all these OEs. I go to SEMA every year. I take training, you know, and I'm one of those kind of shops that believe in education. You know, I don't think I know everything. I know I've learned a lot through my years, and I've experienced a lot, but I never quit learning. I learn stuff every day, because if I keep learning, that's the best way for me to produce the best job for my customer and give them the best experience and the best repair possible.
how much harder do you think it is nowadays to, I mean, you see these 80, $100,000 trucks, like you're talking about a 25 Denali, $100,000, and all these safety features on it. They're really good for when you get into an accident, but I can't imagine,
Yeah, you
I
know,
can't
and
imagine repairing that.
yeah, you know, I've got an old saying. I said, man, the cell phone's the biggest thing that helped my business in the world. And when the cell phone come out in 2003, 4, and 5, the handhelds and all the touch screens started coming out, and Blackberries, man, that just greatly enhanced our business, you know. But now, you know, they got all these laws around the country about you being on a cell phone in these cars. But I have a 25 Navigator Black Label in my shop right now with just barely over 4,000 miles, brand new vehicle. The whole dash is a screen, has a panoramic screen all the way across it, you know. Then it's
Yeah,
got another screen on the bottom, a 15-inch screen on the bottom. So, I mean, just to drive that vehicle, you're distracted. You know what I'm saying? It's just like
right.
having a huge iPad in your hand. So you have to touch these screens. The vehicles in themselves are distractions, and they're putting so much stuff on them now, trying to sell them, you know, with colors and bells and whistles to appease these people. But yes, yeah, they are a problem. The higher end vehicle that you buy with more bells and whistles, as we say, you're going to have a rougher time of fixing it. The more cameras, the more sonar sensors, the more wave radar sensors. That stuff is really not put in stock, because they don't sell that many of those vehicles. There's not many people buying a $122,000, $23,000 Navigator every day. So, you know, when you have this car coming to shop like I have it in here now, it's been here 3 weeks waiting on a bumper cover,
Yeah.
because the truck wasn't released until February, or the vehicle wasn't released until February. I don't think she got it till like maybe 6 weeks, 7 weeks ago, and you know, and someone backed into it, and not her fault, but or not the person's fault, but like I
Yeah.
said, she's waiting without a vehicle because she couldn't drive it, because it tore the tail light out and broke the bumper out. That's right where the backup sensor on it kept giving her arrow kind of code, just beeping driving down the road. So it becomes a nuisance to drive with all that stuff. You know, then your basic sensors don't work. All these sensors and all these systems, these ADAS, which is an assisted driver assistance systems, they are basically tied into everything: your analog brakes, your speed control, your steering angle sensors, your brake pedal. You know, and when one thing goes out, all that stuff is compromised at some rate.
Wow.
So you really are kind of scared of what's not working, because you're constantly getting alarms going off in your vehicle. Your seat's vibrating because, and that's what hers was doing. Her seat was vibrating because every time she would back up, and she wasn't even getting close to anything, but that tail light was broke, and the sonar module was hanging out of it. So it was sitting there swinging back and forth. So it was giving a false reading. So it's just constantly, you know, beeping, vibrating, going off. So it was still working, but it wasn't mounted correctly. So, you know, that throws the vehicle out of calibration. So it becomes unsafe to drive. So if she'd had a vehicle without all that stuff on it, she would still be driving her vehicle. So there's, there's a plus and there's a minus to driving that stuff,
Yeah, your
and
son was telling me about a story about airbags went off and on a 7-year-old truck and the seatbelts needed to be replaced, but
yeah, we
they
have
discontinued or
discontinued. Yeah, we had to go back and get what you call basically just a black basic seat belt that they still build to fit in the truck, but it fits the work model truck, the work based truck. The truck's still
wow.
here now. Still waiting on one of them. But all these trucks come out with these colored seat belts, like I think they call them cocoa and dune and mocha and gray and stardust or whatever.
Right.
There's so many names these things. But all these seat belts, the truck is just 7 years old. They're already discontinued. So you have to get a basic black seat belt. They're still available, but they weren't even available on hand. I had to order them. They had to come out of Canada. So we're still waiting.
Wow.
But
So
it's
a
just it.
7-year-old car.
It is, yes. It's an 18
Wow.
model. So, and we've got a truck in here right now. I got a 22 model that was in here from, I guess you call what I would call the COVID vehicles. It's got rain sensor and lane departure in the window, but it don't have those chips in the vehicle. So those systems are cut off. So when I scan them, it shows it's no communication. Well, the customer bought the truck, so those two systems are on his vehicle, but they're not working. And they never have went back and put on because the chips never was made. So he bought the truck that way. He said, well, if you want these systems put on, we've already deducted it from the price. Now the chips are available for these trucks. So now he has to go back and pay for them, but he wants to add those systems to his vehicle.
Oh,
It's just
geez.
it's just the stuff the dealers did, back then during COVID, because they had to do anything they do to sell a vehicle because they didn't even really have any on the lot. So,
Yeah.
and they were
Well,
still
then
trying to push them.
they started with those dealer markups. So then they were charging people more back
Charge
then after a while.
exactly, yeah. Because if you was a bigger volume dealer, you could get a vehicle. They was making $7,000 to $10,000 extra just to get one. And then these people
Yeah.
understand that 2 years later you're so far upside down the vehicle. But mainly the people that was doing that around here, I don't know about the rest of the United States, but where I'm at in the Mid South area, it was more you farmers, the people that had the money on hand to do it, or had business loans or corporate trucks and fleet trucks and things like that, and they had the extra money to spend. But the way I look at it, I don't think they really did, but they thought they did, and they did it anyway. But to me, I just call it it's just a little bit being greedy. But
Yeah.
man, yeah,
How
it's
much of this is just due to the fact that there's 84-month loans, super expensive cars? Like some of this fall on the automakers, or is it both the automakers and
I
the
think
company?
it's the automaker, because here's the deal. People buy what they put out, right? And I
Yeah.
understand there's a demand. They put out Lamborghinis and Ferraris, but not everybody goes and buys them because they make them.
Yeah.
Because they are so high. But I think I have like I said, I have a 2001 model vehicle here, a truck of my own that I still drive. And I was thinking the other day, and that truck was $28,600, and it was basically a loaded truck. You know what I'm saying? And
Hmm.
now that same truck my son drive, or the son that talks to you, he just sold. He had an 18 that was basically the match of that truck, but 18 model. That truck was $68,000. You know what I'm saying? So,
Wow.
it's just, and we didn't ask for that, but that's just how much trucks have went up. And just to get the same basic thing. But also, I blame the government. I blame dealers. I blame, and people have a certain, because they actually buy them. But
Right.
it's like I tell everyone, people cause their own problems, just like in my industry. Like
Yep.
in my industry, shop owners cause their own issues with insurance companies. The reason these insurance companies are scooting over people, or what I call, doing people wrong, and there's cars getting fixed at lower prices. And they're, like we got into a while ago, talking about the direct repair shop, the DRP programs is what you hear them called. That's when a shop insurance company comes in and cuts a deal with a certain shop or a number of shops in an area, and they try to steer every customer to them, which it's illegal to do that. But as long as they tell the customer that they can choose any shop they want to, but then they tell them, but we have this shop, this network shop that we use that is certified and and this. There's no certification in it. Some of the shops are through ICAR, ASC training, stuff like we are, but it's to a point to where them insurance companies never come and look at those shops or anything. It's just, what's the cheapest price? Are you going to fix this car at my rate? You going to give me this rate? You going to give me this amount of discount on parts? Are you going to use the parts that we tell you to use, the lower quality aftermarket use, recondition? You do that before you buy new stuff, and
So
but
the insurance companies are steering, but is it so that because they can control the prices in
it's
those
because they can
shops?
exactly, they can control the repair. It's not just so
Okay.
much control the shop, they can control the
Approved.
cost of the repair. Yeah. So is,
And
but here's what we get back to. It's a big, long process. I mean, man, we'd really have to start and kind of stack them one, two, three, four, five to actually talk about these variables to where you can keep them in line. But it all starts from this. So it goes back to I'm just going to use OnStar because it's on GM vehicles and you got Starlink and Blue. All of these information systems, like you're riding in a road and you touch OnStar and it tells you where to go or whatever. But also it tells you, if you have a wreck, it reports that caused a wreck and all this stuff. I mean, in the last 2 to 3 to 4 or 5 years, these things have been to where insurance companies now and shops are even buying into these systems where if I want to be the first shop that's actually, like, say you have a wreck one day, it automatically calls an ambulance. Do you need a tow truck called? Yes, I need a tow truck. It'll call you. So then the tow truck even gets on it. He can actually make it where he can do a contract where he's the shop or he's the tow truck that's called. Then the shop that's right off the bat I mean, you're sitting at the wreck scene with smoke coming out of your hood, and they're telling you what shop to take it to because this
Mhm.
shop is bought into this program with this insurance company, and it goes straight there. So, I mean, you're steered from the very get go, which, insurance companies give these big elaborate commercials on TV. So you think they're the greatest thing since sliced bread because they tell you they are, and you believe that. But if any insurance company's on TV blasting their stuff, they're covering up for what they're doing, or they're trying to manipulate into you to think that they're better than what they are. So when they do have a wreck, that you won't think these practices are unethical. I'm not saying
Yeah.
all of them are unethical, but some of them are, because just like them, and I'm not saying they're wrong, not saying they're right, but they're basically your adversary because they're basically out there to make more money off of you,
Yeah.
but you're paying them money to make money off of you. You see what I'm saying? That's really what you're doing. Insurance is you're gambling you're going to have a wreck. They're gambling that you're not, but they have the greatest part of odds because they're giving you the statistics on what you're doing. And they're telling you how you are by your driving record and your driving actions. Even the Good Neighbor Company, or and all these people have got these little things they put in your car. They tell how you're braking. They know when you're speeding, when you're not speeding. So if you put those things in your car for a 20% discount, you're basically setting yourself up for failure because
Mhm.
if you gas real quick or take off from red light quick or brake real fast, that stuff's recording everything you do. So it's sending your driving habits back to this insurance company, and for long they're going to raise your premium, no matter if you've had a wreck or not, because you speed 3 to 5 miles an hour over this area, an hour over this area in a school zone or whatever, and they're going to record and all that stuff. And
Yeah.
if they just happen to pull your customer number one day and check yours, you're going to get an increase in the bill. So
Did they
several companies
use
do that.
used parts?
Oh yeah, used parts, reconditioning.
Really?
Used parts are basically, yeah. And I'm just going to shoot you straight, man. I'm one of the few shops where I think there's major parts programs. I'm going to say this. There's companies out there. I'm not going to call the companies names, but certain shops that care about customer quality, like I am a shop that I want to use all OE parts as much as I possibly can. I don't want to use any aftermarket used or reconditioned. I don't want to use any used wheels. But what you get into, there's such a dramatic price difference in these things, and if the customer don't want to pay the difference, from what their insurance company will pay, I can name names, but there's so many analysts out there, and there's so many people that talk. Say, well, you have to fight the fight for them. You can't make them do that. Well, it all goes back to, man, to like what their policy says. Just like you. So you went and got insurance from whoever company you got it from, and you signed your policy. If you didn't read all those pages and all the fine print and understand what it meant, you signed it. Well, you just agree to whatever they want you to fix your car. So if you have a wreck one day, you say, hey, I got a 25 model so and so. I don't know an aftermarket or used hood off of something. They said, well, it's in your policy. That's what your insurance says. No, no, I don't want that. Well, go back and read your policy because no matter
Mhm.
what no matter, and here's what we get into, like I was discussing with some people this week, some upper people in the industry that I talk to quite a bit, is like the state laws in that state is where they can use used or aftermarket parts on anything on factory warranty, still in factory warranty. So say a car has 3 year 36,000, they are not supposed to be able to put any used or aftermarket part on that car. Well, insurance has done went down to a point to where, even though we're operating in that state, if you want this policy at this premium in this state, you're going to pay for it. We'll tell you we're not breaking the law, but we'll give you a cheaper premium, a few dollars probably, and
Oh, wow.
you can accept aftermarket used parts, and your insurance will be cheaper. Well, it's just like the cars, like you said, well, I'll go finance for 80 and 84 months stuff. People just want the cheapest price. People don't care. They just want to know what they can get into it for. But we are on, my shop is on several programs to whereas you come in here, if you, I take this estimate, remove all your personal information, and we just get your claim number and we upload this to a certain, to these websites. And if so many of these OEMs want to sell me these parts and match the prices of these aftermarket used or aftermarket parts, I get OE parts for that price. So I upload the estimate. And what happens is these companies go to the OEs and they say, look here, if you want to sell these parts at, or you're going to lose business, you're going to have to compete with these aftermarket or used, dealers, salvage yard dealers. You're going to have to sell these parts at a cheaper price. Do you want to do this? So, and that's what they do. They just take the overall, and I know several shops that use them, but most shops don't want to deal with it because it's extra work for me. It's extra stuff to keep up with, these parts programs and having to deal with invoices and things like that. So, but I would rather give you, I'm the kind of the shop that I would rather just lose a few dollars on the job and give you the cleanest, best looking job that I could give you because I'm in a small town. Like I said, I have been here in business going on 33 years for myself. I've been in the industry, like I said, 40 years, but for myself for 33 years. And I've always done that way. I'm not trying to make every dollar that I can, but I want to give you the best job and I want you as a repeat customer and I want you to go tell as many people as you can. If you're not happy, you tell me. But if you are happy, you go tell everybody you know. And that's just kind of the business I've always done in my life. So
Is
I've always made sure my business or my job that I turned out matched what I preach.
what's the best way? So I'm assuming, well, myself included, probably, I'm if I shop by rate and I'm shopping for the cheapest insurance, what's something that people can do can they guide the insurance company or demand OE parts or at
You
least
can. I think they call them, some companies call them riders. They've got like a rider or, contingency policies that you can pay. And I'll be honest with you, I have one on my own. And I'm with the good neighbor company, I guess you want to call them. I don't like calling their names here, but I've been with them for a long, long time, and I pay them a ton of money. I've got 12 vehicles insured and a house and a few other things. All of my cars have policies on them to where I think it kind of goes, I think, on the main three that you drive or main four that you drive, it's a little higher. I think it's like $10 to $12 a premium that I pay a rider. So I get all OE parts, no matter what, not used OE part, not a reconditioned OE part, but a new OE part. And that's what mine are. But the vehicles that are I have some that's over 4 years old, and I don't have that rider on those policies because I don't really care about them. They get over 150, 100,000 miles. I don't care. They're basically, we use them to rent out here at the shop or loaners at the shop and things like that. So, but my personal vehicles that I have, my son's vehicle when he was living with me and working for me, I made sure his vehicles were insured that way because I don't want any trouble. Because, like I tell them, I pay enough insurance. If I get paid for getting my car fixed, I want it fixed right, whether I fix it or someone else fixes it. Go
what
ahead.
insurance companies do you think are can you name them, the ones that maybe people should consider that where it might be a little better quality?
Well, I'm gonna tell you from my point of view, I'll say Shelter Farm Bureau, and I'm gonna be honest with you, Progressive just moved to number one in the world, or number one, I guess you say in the world. They took over State Farm just a few months ago. The first time State Farm's ever fell out of the customer survey in I think probably over 30 years, I think. But Progressive just went to number one in the world for the first time, or number one in the nation. I put it that way. I'm not sure about the world. But like I said, everything I say here is not factual, just from my opinion and what I've understood. But yeah, I received the email the other day that Progressive had took over. Now, I'm not saying they're the best company in my book, but they're not bad. But like I said, I
So,
I
so
I think
you
for
get
for the easiest ones for me to work with is Farm Bureau and Shelter in my area, and that's just for my shop. That's speaking of my shop only.
how hard is it to get going back to like that navigator or let's say that navigator was hit even a little bit harder? How hard is it to get one of these new vehicles back to like an OE spec for the sensors and the air, everything, the radar sensors?
Calibrate. Yeah, you're speaking of the ADAS systems. Depending on, and I'm gonna be honest with you, it's pretty hard depending on the area you're in. Like if you're in a Dallas area, or maybe like somewhere like I guess you would say Charlotte or Orlando or New York or there's tons of businesses there, which I have my own calibration equipment here, but having to keep up with all the information for each OE, it's getting to where now you basically gonna have to start picking what brands of cars you work on instead of trying to work on every one of them because the equipment and the tool and dying, I guess you can say tooling and equipment that you have to carry to work on each one of these cars is getting out of hand. Certain welders and
Wow.
rivet guns and certain glues and just the methods that they're fixed. I mean, it's just like now there's methods out there, like there's certain cars that when we put them back together, if you actually open the doors, pull the rubbers back, you'll see that the welds are different or the rivets are different because we can't reproduce
Oh,
what the
wow.
factory does. And it's not, don't mean it looks different from the, just looking at it, but if you actually went in depth in it, you could tell. But that's the way the OE procedure is. They know we can't reproduce it. I mean, GM's got what they call this spin fusion welding. They can spin two different metals together where we can't do that, and you can't even tell the thing's been put together. It just looks like a molten puddle.
Hmm.
And we can't do that stuff. That's done on the OE assembly line, and it's never can be reproduced in the real world because it's not feasible. I mean, you're talking about millions of dollars worth of equipment. But
Yeah.
they give us I believe the OEs do a good job at giving us the best practices and the best way that's feasible to fix them. Don't get me wrong, a lot of people disagree with that reads OE procedures because some of them are pretty damn hard to follow. It's getting to where you almost have to have a college education to read and find some of these websites and go and decipher some of these websites and break it down and find what you need.
Yeah.
Everything's technical now. Everything's through certain websites, and you got to have like I said, you got to have registration or subscriptions and things to get into these deals and pay for them. And that's another deal. Insurance companies don't want to pay us now because I'm not a DRP. I've only been on just a few DRPs throughout my 33 years, and it's not that I don't like them. I just believe if you live by them, you're going to die by them. Because
Hmm.
it's like me. If I let the wolf in the sheep or in the hen house, he's going to eventually eat all my hens. You know what I'm saying? But believe me, the insurance companies know more about your business than you do. No matter what kind of analytics you run, if you work for them on a DRP program, they can tell you where you're substandard. They can tell you where you're lacking because they keep so many statistical information on what you do for them. They can tell you, and every one of them, and to tell you the truth, everybody that's on a DRP in this United States, they have what they call a scoreboard or a quota or whatever. They have a measurement system. These insurance companies measure them and they tell them what they want to do. So if your score is not where they want it to be, they take you off or they'll put you on a suspension or warn you or and that's how they keep these people in check, these shops in check. And it's gotten to where your bigger corporate shops, your MSOs, what I mean is your multi-shop owners, all they do is cater to these things. So I'm not going to call any names, but some of your corporate MSOs, they don't like fixing cars under, they fix everything under $6,000 because why? You can't turn the number, you can't turn the hour, you can't get the car in and out enough money on it. So they want to do volume. So they have to do lighter hits and, bumper fender door job. They can't do all this structural work because next thing is comes the technician. There's no technicians in this country anymore that are like me. And there's a bunch of young guys coming in, but be honest with you, they don't know what they don't know. I will say that.
Yeah.
This industry has gotten so sophisticated, and I've hired a couple of people in the last 2 weeks, and I'm gonna tell you, that I thought really knew something, and it's to a point to where I'm almost just sick at my stomach to because once you hire somebody, you don't want to turn around and let them go, but it's to a point now where if you can't do the work, I just got to cut you loose. I can't have, empathy for somebody because I have to have a job to do. It's just like the insurance companies. They want to make the most money they can. I need to make the most money I can, but still be reasonable and be an ethical guy and have empathy for people. But it's to a point now where our margins are so small that we're making off these cars now because of all the intricacies of the business now. You don't have much of a margin for error, to mess up, or you repaint something now, it costs you your job. I mean, you don't make anything on that job really.
What's the issue with most of the younger skilled work? Is it just lack of skill, or is it lack of
It's
work
lack of
ethic,
skill.
or
It's lack of work ethic. Mainly it's work ethic.
okay.
Because man, I can tell you, I can take anything, I can take anybody and train them, if you have a work ethic, but I can't
Yeah.
make you a decent person. I can't take, I've always said I try to hire integrity over skill because I can train you to do what I want you, but I can't make you want to do it. Man, I'm a shop owner. I'm a worker. I still work every day. I don't just just come in here and get the shop going and cut out all day. I'm here sweating with everybody all day long, or, whatever the case may be. I'm here till 7, 8 o'clock every night. I guess you say, people say, well, you don't know how to run your business. Well, no, it's just I'm in a small town, and man, I've always just been very passionate about what I do, and I'll give my time up before I let someone have the bad end of the deal or get a bad job from my business. And that's just, I want to
Yeah.
make sure everything is as close to right as I can get it. And even if I didn't get paid to do it, every day or every week I have 2 or 3 jobs go out of here that I've done more than what I got paid, because or I'll put better parts on it than what I got paid to, because I just
Mm.
don't want to turn that loose. Because like I said, I'm in an area. I work for my town's got probably 7,800 people in it. We had a tornado come through here 2 years ago, wiped out a lot of our population. And I can tell by looking at you when you come in the door, whether you need help or don't need help, or whether you're going to get your car fixed or you're not going to get your car fixed, or you're just trying to make money off an estimate, or, whatever. I can tell that. I've done it so long. I can tell that just as soon as I walk in the door. Yeah. Most people might be sincere, but there's occasional ones that are not. And you just have to weed those out, and still treat them with kindness, but, and send them on down the road.
Yeah, I've heard, man, from other other older guys that are kind of at the end of their careers. They either have electrical or plumbing businesses or whatever, and they say the same exact thing. That's been really tough to find either to keep the labor there or to get them to work, full
Yeah.
days, to get them to show up 5 days a week, to, it's all the kind of typical things that we just all took for granted growing up. Is like, hey, that's just what you did. There wasn't
Yeah.
any more distractions.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know how old you are, but I'm in my 50s. So, but like I said, when I grew up, like the baseball team or the football team, there was on there that didn't know how to throw a football or didn't know how to catch a baseball. It was just normal back then. But
Mhm.
I've coached my sons, and over the period of time coming up in the last 25, 30 years, I had kids that couldn't even hold a baseball, couldn't throw a baseball, or couldn't, they didn't know how to dribble a basketball. I mean, and they was
Yeah,
13, 14 years old. I was like, man, and it basically started making me realize kids just didn't have the innate abilities. They couldn't use their bodies. They couldn't use their big muscles like me and you or other kids did, because they didn't, I climbed trees and run up down the riverbanks and swung
yeah,
on vines and hammered nails. Like I told you, when I was a kid, I was riding around on a bicycle at 9, 8, 9 years old, mowing yards and helping people haul shingles up the ladder. I mean,
yeah,
you taught yourself how to use your body, and you created a work ethic because you wanted to. But nowadays, people come in my shop. I mean, I'm not going to kid you. There's people that come in my shop, start out with no skill at all, make 30, 40,000 a year, and
yeah,
or they have the ability just to start out there, and people make 70, 80,000 here, just here 2 or 3 years. But if you want to work, but to a point, and then you can go over that if depending on what you want to work, but the average person here makes 25 to $32 an hour, and that's where they go. If you can do the work, that's what you all make, and that's just how that's a good
yeah,
living for this town we live in. I mean, it pays. Be honest with you, you could work at my shop or the other shop here in town, you'll make more money anywhere in this town,
yeah,
unless you have a business of your own,
yeah.
um, and that's just the way it is, and
I,
and because it pays to do it.
I saw the same thing coaching my kids. I got 4 kids. I'm almost 50, so I'm a little younger than you, but I saw the same
Yeah,
exact thing. And it was just a weird observation. I could tell that the hand-eye coordination of a lot of these younger kids, they couldn't even tell where the ball was going to end up. Like, it was really hard
exactly.
to
Yeah,
describe. I was like, wow, this kid, you could see that the parents hadn't just taken them outside in the backyard and like, hey, I'm going to throw this
you're
ball
exactly
here.
right.
And it was so weird and I think it's
You
just
know,
part of our
I think
society.
I think you know who Mike Rowe is, the Dirty Jobs guy.
Oh yeah. Yep.
Yeah, he's put out a couple of videos, and they've been airing on stuff that I watch, like the Body Shop Review News and ABR, which is Auto Body Review News, and Fender Bender, and all these stuff that I subscribe to try to keep up with with techniques and new products, and and things like that. He's been posting on there a lot, and trying to get people in the trade schools. When I used to go to the high school here, and I talked to the fourth and fifth graders. We used to hit eighth and ninth grade, but they was pretty well already determined. They had attitudes, didn't want to talk to me. But so we tried to go back into fourth and fifth graders. I tell you, it was kind of upsetting, because really, what the questions I got asked even then, to show you that society had influenced these kids. I would try to tell them, show them videos of what we did in the shop, and a job when it come in wrecked, and it was sitting in the showroom or out in the lot finished, and it was real neat and shiny and clean, and we put it back together, and we would show the welding processes and the frame pulling and hammering and beating on them, and sparks flying when the car got repaired. But you know what most of them wanted to know? Do I work on Bugattis? Do I work on
Oh
Lamborghinis? Do I
geez.
work on GTRs? I mean,
Right.
they're already, yeah. And so what that means is they're so influenced by social media nowadays, by videos and songs and all these damn video games and things, that no one cares about basic life anymore. Everybody sees the stardom, but no one knows all the work that it takes to get there, or the dedication, or just the love of having a basic life to start with. Everyone
Yeah.
wants to start on the top and they don't understand and they're mad because they're not. And that's what I was going to get to earlier is all the employees I have, everyone that comes in my door, "Oh, I want to paint." Well, yeah, I want to paint too. Be honest with you, painters make good money, but it takes a long time to learn that. But you have to start here, and or they want to do this, or they say, "Well, I don't want to, I don't want to sweep the floor. I don't want to clean up my area." The kid I hired, a couple weeks ago, he come in and told him what he need to do, this, that, and the other. And he's like, man, I thought I was working on cars. I said, well, yeah, you'll go clean the toilet too, because you piss in it. So if you piss in the toilet, you're going to clean it too, so that's part of your job here also, not to be rude, but that's what I told him.
That's
But anyway,
awesome.
it is, I said, you're not the only one that don't get to clean the toilet here, and he walked by a trash can that was full 2 times. I said, did you throw anything in that trash? I said, I think you put that last wad of paper in that trash, didn't you? He said, probably, yes, sir. I said, well, you need to pick it up and take it out then. There's the dumpster out back, and there's the new bag right there. So, and he, you tell he didn't like it, but it's just
Yeah.
when my age, man, when I come up, that was an automatic. If I saw that, I was trying to bend over backwards to get it before the man would see me do it. That way he would think that I saw and I cared.
Yep.
Nowadays they don't care about that. They don't care if you think what you think of them.
Yeah.
And what I've seen is I've had people back here a year and a half, 2 years, just start to get good, and all of a sudden they fly off somewhere. You're like, man,
Yeah.
nowadays, in my industry is just like the mechanic industry or like the plumbing industry. These plumbers and HVAC and electricians, they put a lot of time in these kids, and I can say kids, but these young adults, these 18 to 26-year-olds, they send them to school and journeyman school, or we send you to like I said, if I go get you ICAR certified or ASE certified, or send you to a couple of training classes, they're 10, 12, $15,000 for a week,
Hmm.
and so now, like I told my son yesterday, we're going to start cutting contracts with these people, no compete clauses and things like this. So if you leave, you're going to owe me that money back,
Yeah.
because you can't just be training these people to run all over and do it, or they don't even use it to start with. They'll go to work at McDonald's. They don't care. And I'm not speaking for every person. There's exceptions, I know, but in mine and your time, there was more elite people walking up down the street every day that wanted a better life, like you and I are doing now, than there are nowadays. People now just want to sit around, eat Cheeto, and drink Dr. Pepper, and sit on their phone and look at TikTok.
Yep.
That's just kind of my philosophy. That's
It's
all you see them doing. That's just everybody's got their phone in their hand, looking at stupid
Yep.
ass videos that don't mount to nothing. It's not going to make their life any better. But
Yeah.
you know,
No, I completely agree, man. It was a
yeah,
struggle with my kids growing up. The first my older daughter she's old enough where she didn't have a phone until she was a freshman in high school, and it was much easier. And then, everyone after that got harder, and we had to
yeah.
and then the parents, every other parent's giving their kid all these networks. They don't even pay attention to what their kid's doing, and they just love it because the kid's not bugging them, and it's a babysitter, it's a free
You're
babysitter
exactly
for 'em.
right. Yeah, that's right.
And
Yeah, and
it's
that's the problem, man. We've got kids raising kids now. That's the problem.
yeah.
Kind of another thing I wanted to talk to you about is insurance now. Not only are they kind of not to say going away from the DRP program, they're using the DRP program to get them to the shop of their choice, or they have stopped now. Like if you have an insurance agent, used to you call your agent, report your wreck or whatever, and the agent would call it in for you. Now you can't even do that no more. If you even have an agent, most of your insurance companies are done online or through the internet when you got your insurance. So you call in, report this number. So you, the customer, are talking straight to the claims person. And so the shop is never involved unless they already have sent you to somewhere when you had your wreck through your own Starlink, or they say, look, we have a DRP shop, a network shop. We just need you to take it here and do this. If the people don't care, they never knew they was steered. So they never even got another choice. They believe what their insurance company told them because, like that goes back to saying, the insurance companies are so big and so powerful. They got all these commercials telling you how good they are and how much money they're going to save you.
Hmm.
It's like the old Geico commercial, 15, we'll save you 15%. But yeah, 15% of what? They ain't never told you what we're saving you 15% of. It's just a slogan to stick in your head. You're thinking you're getting a deal no matter what you get.
Yeah.
They haven't told you what they're saving you 15% of. American public has been manipulated so much by social media ads, and they believe what they're being told on all these social media sites, and then next thing you know, all these insurance ads, like just right before we clicked on to talk to you, I got an ad on my phone. It's from Progressive. It's like man, it's like, golly, dude, it's like you can't even. I'm a shop, I know better, but they're still even sending them to me. But So what happens is, like I said, you have a wreck, you're told, well, just send me pictures. Is your car drivable? Oh, yes, yes, it's drivable. If it's not, get it to a shop, get it to our shop, or we'll have someone come get it. The insurance companies are having wreckers or tow trucks come get these cars and move them to them shops right off the bat, because these shops are cutting these deals. They're also giving them free storage and free estimates.
Uh,
And that's part of the program. When you basically become a DRP shop, you become their adjuster. They fire their adjusters or they lay their adjusters off. They get rid of their job and their car and their computer and their health insurance and their retirement plan. So they saving a ton of money by getting rid of that person by just having the shop do their evaluation on the car for them. Or they do what I call them pocket claims or a virtual assist claim. They'll have you take a picture of your own car, send it
mhm.
in. They'll write you an estimate on your car. So here's what the kicker is. They know they've done cut you about 70% on that claim. So if you don't get it fixed, you just took about a third of your claim. And then after 90 days, your claim is done. You can't even turn a supplement on that claim. On most insurance companies, they'll say after this claim has been open in 90 days, we close it. So then you have to resubmit it. So if you don't get it fixed and decide to get it fixed when you get your taxes back, so says, or next year, well, you just cut yourself, because you're going to have to get it fixed for what they paid you. But they're hoping you'll go away. That's what they're hoping you, and they save a ton of money on that claim. They don't care about your car. They don't care about whether you get it fixed or not. They just want to save the most money.
Yeah, and I know I talked to your son about the diminished values. What is
Yeah.
most insurance companies really
They
don't
don't.
factor
Yeah.
that in, do they?
No, they don't. But here's the deal about diminished value. A lot of people don't even know what diminished value is. And to go back to something I hit on a while ago is, I started 20 years ago. I used to have billboards all around town, and I had certain social media sites when it started getting popular, Instagram, Facebook, and um, a little bit on YouTube, but that stuff just didn't go over too well because it wasn't as popular back then. But uh, trying to, what I call, train the public. I'm kind of like the dentist. Everybody knows who their doctor is. Not everybody has a dentist. They go to the dentist just when they need to. So often people don't get their teeth cleaned every 6 months or whatever. Some do, but most of them don't. But everybody sees a doctor once or twice a year. So they have a doctor. Well, I'm kind of like the dentist. They know who I am when they need me. So they don't never pay attention to these ads that I put out because, well, I ain't had no wreck. I don't need to look. They just scroll on over it because they're trying to get this video of somebody acting dumb or stupid or make them laugh or, smashing a bottle against their head or whatever. So you don't ever see that kind of stuff. But, that's what's happening in our area. These shops have really the MSOs, and I'm not blaming them because I know it's a business model. They're doing it to make money just like the insurance companies are. So they're doing what they have to do to make the biggest volume of money, and that's what it is. But I'm also the shop that's in it I have empathy. I want to do the best job. I want to take care of people, and I just want to give people the best job for their money still. So I will never, I got approached 2 years ago to get bought out by MSO, and I refused. I don't want to. I don't want to sell. This is my business. I don't want to work for anybody else. I don't want to run it for them, and then hand it over to them. I just want to do it for myself. If they come put me out of business, so be it. But I just think it'd be hard for them to do.
Yeah.
Because it's like I said, I can work by myself, and I have a great crew. The crew I have now has been with me for years, and I'll take care of them as long as I possibly can. Like I told them, I said, y'all go down when the ship goes down. If you stay here, if you don't, somewhere else. But I appreciate the guys I have. They work good, and I'm proud of the ones I have. I've had some good ones leave, but like I said, they moved to another state when the tornado come, and because that's another deal because the housing market was so high and they lost their houses and they couldn't rebuild for the amount of insurance money they got because it goes back to
Yep.
insurance again. Wouldn't pay them what it cost to rebuild, so they had to move with other family members. But
Would you
anyways,
if you were looking at a used car, I just thought of this. Would you look at a CarFax? Or are you trying to find used cars that absolutely don't have accidents anymore, just due to the difficulty of the repairs and what you see day to day?
man, here's the deal. CarFax is a scam, or I ain't gonna say scam. I shouldn't say that because, but it is a selling point for the
Right.
dealer because they can prove, I guess you can say it's like, well, see, it's only had minor damage, this, that, and the other. Well, the best thing to do is call the state. You can call each state and they'll have a copy of the actual claim, and
Okay.
they make it, yeah, and you can actually get the actual repair on it. But they just give you a dollar value is what CarFax does, and or it was minor rear repair, whatever. You really never know. but it's a point to really it was made for the dealer to hold it over the consumer's head. Well, see, your car's been wrecked. I pulled it up on my CarFax. See here, so I'm not going to offer you this for you. Your car's not worth this. It goes back to, like I said, it's manipulation. It's from the highest people, from dealers, OEs, not really OEs, but people trying to make the most money, and insurance companies.
Hmm.
Whereas every car that has a claim on it is supposed to be, even though I think all 50 states, I know Arkansas has what they call a SR21. So if you have a wreck, you're supposed to file an SR21, show them your car's been damaged, and tell them how much. But not everybody does it. It's one of those laws that's not ever been enforced, and people don't do it. But
Hmm.
there's so many things in the mix now, like insurance has manipulated this price and that. So it really doesn't matter anymore. But yeah, if you're going to buy a used car, I would always check to see if there's a Carfax, or look at your state. The state can give you, like, when you pull down the rundown, they'll tell you how many times it's been tagged, how many owners it's had. Yeah, I would check all that stuff. But
Yeah.
basically, what you need to do is take it to an experienced person. I know that's also another problem, is trying to find the person that would give a damn enough to actually look at a car for you. I do it all the time. I have people bring me cars all the time that are used, want me to look at it, from past customers and things like that, because they like the job we did. And like I'm explaining to you, I explain the way we do things. I explain every job to the customer, and what we did, what's involved in fixing it, and all the calibrations and all the things that has to be done, and why it takes longer. And that means something to them. So it goes
Yeah.
back to, also, when you're talking about a used car, this is something I told my son, we talked about, and I told you I told him I would hit on with you, is I think also car dealers need to have certified people selling cars, because now cars are so sophisticated. And I'll tell you a little example. I bought my wife a Range Rover a year and a half ago, and the little lady that sold my wife, or that I bought the car from, when we went and picked up her ride, she walked out there with her. And I'm gonna be honest with you, this young lady knew every damn thing there was to know about that car, from
Hmm.
the safety systems to the braking, to the tire size, to the load rating, to the hitch rating. I mean, she knew everything about it, and she knew every. I don't know if you knew about a Range Rover. They got like three different infotainment systems in them, three different
Hmm.
screens in them. And I mean, they're difficult to use, to swap around between each one. And she showed my wife everything, how to connect her phone, how it worked. I mean, this lady knew what she was selling. She knew her product,
Hmm.
and nowadays you get car dealers that don't even know. They just know they're selling a Toyota Camry, or selling a Chevrolet truck, or a Silverado, whatever it is. They don't know, because they done went from dealer to dealer to dealer, trying to make the most money. And no one educates them. People don't know they had aluminum. I said, well, this is an aluminum vehicle, this, that, and the other. The repair procedure is going to be harder on this. Or it's like certain types of metal. I mean, I don't know whether you're aware of it, but like Mopars, all Mopars, like the little Dodge Journeys and Jeep Liberties and Renegades, when you take your doors off, the door posts were actually made out of what they call boron. It's a metal that can't be repaired, can't be
Hmm.
heated, can't be, if it's got a dent in it, it has to be repaired. You're talking about the whole uniside of a car. You're talking about cutting. Say you may got you could take and hit it with a baseball bat. Now, if you go by procedures, this is where I said earlier, people will say, "Man, you don't need to intrude on that car that much. You're cutting the whole side of that car out just for a dent big as a baseball." Well, but that's the way the OE said it should be repaired, because as far as intrusion. But then you get into, is the shop qualified to do the repair properly? So yeah, you would hurt the car more by intruding on it that far if you didn't fix it right, or have the right welders, right glue, right procedures. And that's what we get into nowadays, is the shop actually qualified to repair cars that they're working on? Should they be working on them, or is the shop certified enough? And that's what insurance companies will never check. You'll never hear them say, this car has this, these credentials, these credentials. This person has so many people certified to weld here and weld this metal. You don't hear an insurance company saying that, because they don't want customers to know that, because most of the shops they deal with are not.
Right.
And the shops that they deal with are having turnover of employees so much that they couldn't keep certifications in line anyway, because one person leaves, that shop certification goes down, but they don't ever report it. So no one ever knows it, because that one or two guys is certified, and they're basically, it's kind of like a nurse practitioner working under a doctor. He's only certified as long as that doctor's alive. Well, if his doctor dies, he can't certified no more. He has to go find another doctor to work under. So he's just
Yeah.
a practitioner. So it's kind of like the certified welder. So if your certified welder leaves, your shop's still certified. So there's other people there's people in there that's been doing it under him, but now that he's gone, they're really not certified no more. They're going to go do it themselves. So, but that's just, that's getting down to the nitpicking, I guess you can say, but it's still still what's true. You know, it's how it
Yeah.
is.
It's a whole world I'm not familiar with at all, and it's kind of fun to talk
Yeah.
about, and I
Yeah.
appreciate you on.
And like I said, like I said, this is my first time to ever do this, to talk to you about this stuff. I mean, I have so many opinions, and I start rambling. I know I'm not probably the best person to talk to, but
No, I
uh,
love it.
if we get a structured deal, you tell me a set of questions, you send them to me, and I promise you, I know some of the best people in the world, some of the best shop owners in the country, from people from all states. Like I said, I hang out at SEMA every year, and we meet people here, and I know all the, some of the biggest people from the OEs, from Honda and Nissan and General Motors. But I'm just in a small town, small shop. But like I said, I meet those guys, and I cherish those relationships because I use them every day in my business to call on. And I don't know something, I need some information. I use these people, and that's what they want. They want you to do a job right because, like you, whatever you drive, you want me to fix your vehicle as close as humanly possible as it was from the factory. You don't want any problems with it. You don't want anything
Right.
falling off of it, air leaks or things like that, electrical problems. So, yeah, but I'm going to tell you the truth. If I can fix it, I'm fix it. If I can't, I'm going to tell you, I'm not going to take this job because I'm not accustomed to fixing these cars. Like me, I don't work on the new vets. I'm not working on any of the new vets because of carbon fiber. I don't have the stuff to work on them. I don't have the
Hmm.
procedures. Plus, there's not enough of it, for me to mess with. I think we probably got three in this town now, the new carbon fibers and all the composite stuff. So, yeah, there's no use me trying to do that, because I could
Yeah.
have 10 jobs fixed by the time I get that one done.
If you had to leave the viewer with like just kind of a key points to look out for if they get in an accident or what, or if they're hunting for a new insurance company, what's the best way they can protect themselves from being taken advantage of?
Well, what I would tell you is find the one that's not going to try to steer you. Find the one that will actually let you use the shop of your choice, but also understand when you make the shop of your choice that you're choosing the shop. So if they mess up, you can't go holler or cry to your insurance company because you chose them. So, but
Yeah.
if an insurance company directs you somewhere right off the bat, there's probably not nothing in it for you. There's more in it for them in the shop than it is for the customer. So you need to understand that they're not doing that. They try to hide that as a necessity, as if they're doing you a favor. But no, the favor is done to them because they're getting the car fixed the way they want to repair, the way they want to guide the repair the way they want to go in the cheapest way and with what parts they want. But what I would tell every customer is to understand this. You've got an insurance premium, every company out there is inherently decent. I'm not going to say all of them are, but your top 10 are basically decent insurance companies if you pay for the right insurance, if you go in and ask. But most people go in there, it's just like everything else, like Walmart, Dollar General, and Fred, or wherever you want, supermarket, they want the cheapest price to try to get the most customers in. The less
Yeah.
knowledge they give you, the better off they are at giving you that product. But if every customer if they really want the best product, they'll ask for it and they'll be intuitive about it. But most people just want the cheapest thing and they don't care. But when it comes to my shop, I have to take people every day and explain to them about deductibles and about rental cars and about total loss and about, like you said, diminished value. Which I want to talk about that before we get off here right quick too. But what I would
Okay.
tell people is just ask about the part situation and whether your company makes me use aftermarket or use recondition and what you can pay to get an OE part where it makes it run smoother. Because don't get me wrong, some OE parts now we're still having trouble. Like I said, the 25 Navigator, I had a 22 Dodge truck in here, sitting here for 18 months waiting on a roof skin and an outside door, a center door pillar and a door and a couple of headlights. It's sitting here 18 months waiting on them things a year ago. We have a Ford here right now, been here 5 weeks waiting on a door shell. So
Wow.
it's just the way things are, but it's the newer vehicles. But it's really just because of the situation of, I'm not going to blame it on the tariffs, but it has a little bit to do with it. But it's just a supply and demand. I mean, during COVID, we lost about every parts plant, every plant in America went overseas or somewhere else, and these dealers or these OE companies, all your major car manufacturers just hasn't found the right people to rebuild these or to make these parts for them. The suppliers.
Yeah.
A lot of them shut down, and they haven't had the people that's got the right tooling and the right deal to fix their parts to make them to their specifications. And that's what I'm hearing. It's really not. And it goes back, like we said, they just can't find employment, can't find the people to do them, can't find enough employment to get the parts out fast enough.
Yeah.
But also cars are, like I said, they're not staying on the road very long. Cars are Used to be cars stay on the road 10, 15 years. Now people getting rid of cars every 2 to 3 years. And then brands are turning over. Body styles are staying 2 years and they're changing. And
Yeah.
it's so hard to keep all those parts so on the shelf, so they're just doing it by order. And then they're trying to fill the orders as they go. And it's just not happening. I mean,
Almost feels like they're trying to make the turnover shorter so that people just cycle into new vehicles more frequently, but then
well,
the prices are
yeah.
double what they used to be. So
They are. Yes, some
you're
of them
look,
triple. But look at your washer and dryer, stove and refrigerator, and your range, your kitchen
yeah,
stoves. I mean, man, I remember we had stuff when I was a young guy, and my grandparents had stuff 15, 20, 25 years for washer and
yeah,
dryers. Now, if you get 3 years out of a refrigerator, you can go out there and kiss that damn thing, put a red ribbon on it because you've gotten your money's worth.
yeah,
And they're $2,500 or $2,000, and then you got washer and dryers that's last I mean, myself, I bought Samsung stuff, and man, I had three washers in 2 years.
wow.
Uh, yeah, just
I, I
and it
had
was warranty. They just wouldn't last.
Yeah, I had my first hot water heater at the home I'm in now lasted almost 15 years with 6 people in the house, which is
Exactly.
pretty good. And then I bought another one to replace it, and it lasted like 4.5 or 5 years.
That's
And
right.
yeah, it's just you
But
can tell everything's just
But
being
to go back to ask your question, people need to check when they go get insurance or buy a used car. You need to check the car out. Take it to someone who's very reputable. They can actually look at it and tell what's going on with it. Check your wheel alignments. The main thing is take it to you. Go spend $59. Let them do a check alignment on it. It's worth $59 because your suspension is the main thing on these cars. Now that all these analog brakes, all your steering inclination sensors, like Toyota has, it basically puts a barrier all the way around the car. It knows whether your wheels are out of line or not by the way it measures itself, as it drives down the road. As you turn, if it turns more one way than it does to the left or to the right, it knows that. So it throws a sensor off, and you can tell that with just a basic wheel alignment, whether your wheels are true, whether you toe in, toe out, your cast and camber. And that's one of your biggest things that happen in collision shops and mechanic shops is people don't know how to fix suspension, and suspension is kind of hard to deal with because the cars are so brittle. All your cars are basically have what you call engine cradle. So if they get hit in the wheel, most of the time it'll bend the engine cradle because it's just cheap thin
yeah,
metal with these flanges that hold them on. And people try to waller out holes in the strut. They'll grind this out and try to align it, but over a period of time, that stuff moves around and it's not supposed to be that way. And that's where you get most of your problem in used cars. And most of your used car lots now, like Drive Time, Car Mart, Car Max, these people are hiring these cheap labor to fix these cars themselves. They're buying salvage cars off of Copart and Aesop and all these salvage companies that sell wrecked cars, and they're fixing them and putting them on the lot and sell them for tax time for people and just to get into them quick, and they're not fixing them right, and then they're just charging people for them big interest, and people are getting in them just because they can afford them and think they got a new
yeah,
car, and they're basically a salvage car. It's been not fixed correctly. But yeah, that's the main thing is check on it. But insurance is, just like I said, I tell people all the time, get the cheapest deductible you can have because just like you, if you don't have $1,000 to throw down and burn right now when you went and bought insurance, you're damn sure not going to have it when you have a wreck because you don't know when you're going to have a wreck. It happens out of nowhere, you
yeah,
know. And so get something you can afford because everyone thinks, oh, you can just charge that back to insurance. You charge them, just add my deductible in there. Well, if it's that damn easy, they wouldn't have no deductibles. Okay. But
right,
and everyone else, I tell people this. This is me being, I guess you can say I'm being a butthole, and people say, man, that's kind of rude. Well, I would say, look, the money that you spend on that Starbucks drink or that Sonic drink or that Monster Energy drink right there you got in your hand, and those three apps that you got on your phone that you was looking at while you was waiting on me to get to you, you add those together, you just made your deductible for this month. You know what I'm saying? And
yeah,
that's what people think. They just think that I'm supposed to take out of mine, out of my profit, give to them because they think I can. But like I tell them, I said, when you run through Walmart or you run through the grocery store, you don't get the gallon of milk and eggs. Hey, I'm gonna see y'all later. Y'all can give me these. I shopped here last week, right? It's not the way it
yeah,
works. But that's what the normal public thinks, that we can just add these deductibles in because back in the old days, 30 years ago, shop owners, they would do that stuff, but really they didn't save your deductible back then. They just didn't fix your damn car correctly, or they didn't put a part on there that was behind something that you didn't know. They straightened it and they used that money instead of buying the part to pay for your deductible. They didn't lose no money. They didn't actually save it for you. They didn't do you no favor. They just didn't fix your car correctly. They
yeah.
compensated somewhere down the line. and over a period of time, people use shops that do that all the time. Well, he's always hooked me up. He does this. No, he didn't hook you up. He's screwing your ass, really. But he just ain't fixing your car correctly. You just don't know it, and it just ain't failed you yet. So you ain't
Yeah.
noticed it yet. And that's the way it is. But there is some people, like I said, I've give people $100 all the time because, like I said, money don't mean anything to me, man. I'm just not one of those guys. I don't run around trying to worry about money or trying to make billions, because I just want to be a good person, be happy, love my kids, love my family, and love the public, and then just be the best person I can be and help most people I can with what I can help. And when it comes to insurance and car deals, you have to understand how the world works. Everyone is out to get you. Everyone's out to make the most money you can. So you have to understand and be smart. Ask questions. Don't be afraid to ask questions. Don't be timid. Don't be shy. Don't let no one overpower you. Just go in there with and with your thinking cap on. Ask questions. Don't ever feel stupid or feel dumb because you ask certain things, no matter who you are. Uh,
Yeah.
Even in a repair, when you come to me, if you don't understand something, and I would tell everybody in a collision shop, in a wreck, ask that shop owner. That's what that shop owner's problem is, or his estimator, or whoever his person is, his tech that's talking to you. Ask them questions. Make them show you the old parts. Make them show you the procedures they're going to fix it by. Make them show you their certifications, or that way that they're liable to work in your car. You wouldn't go to a veterinarian and get brain surgery. So make sure you know where you're going.
Although some
Check their
people might
reviews.
nowadays.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, we got people eating Tide Pods, don't we? Yeah, that's right. Our hats in. But another
Thanks.
thing I was going to tell you, the diminished value. And before
Yep.
we leave, a lot of people don't even know what that is. I have had several people, deductibles and diminished value. People don't understand. All right. Diminished value is like when someone damages your property. Okay, you're owed the money that the damage does. When you have to resell it, you have to prove that it's been damaged because you talked about CarFax. All right, before CarFax, diminished value wasn't really a thing because there was no way for somebody to tell that your car had been repaired unless you were a professional and you could tell that it had been repaired or that it had done a
Mhm.
crappy job on it. So they would hold that over your head. Well, now, since all the social media and internet stuff come out, Carfax and Car Gurus and add-on and all that, Auto Trader and all this stuff reports all that stuff. JD Byrider and all these people, you can find out anything at any time about the car's history. Now, if you get hit, if someone hits you, now you can't get diminished value if it's your policy. So you wreck your car and it's your fault, your insurance company does not, you're not liable to pay you diminished value on your car. Now, you can
Right.
get a lawyer and try to push that issue. I've seen it done very few times, and it's been successful probably 2 out of the 10 times I've seen it done, where they force their own company to do it. But anytime another person's insurance hits your car, or another person, that insurance company owes you diminished value. They owe you
Mm.
the loss in your property of what more or less I guess you call the human function of knowing your car's been wrecked. When someone comes and says, well, your car's been wrecked, I'm not going to give you 100,000. I'll give you 75 because, it's not worth as much now because it's had this much damage done to it, but I'll still take it. Well, that notion of them knowing it's been wrecked, that perception, they owe you that difference. The company does. So
Yeah.
usually I would say it's 10 to 15% of what the car was new, and it goes down with each year of value. But I've gotten people $10,000, $15,000 before on cars that are a year and a half old. That's over $50,000. You're talking about like a Denali or a Tahoe Limited or something
Mhm.
like that. Yeah, these Lexus and things like that. You give them paperwork and they take it. But most of the time, to be honest with you, insurance company's never going to ask you. But that's where a person, like, if you get hit, you just have to ask them. Say, look here, you're dealing with that other person's company. So look here, I need to be paid diminished value, and here's what my, and always do the research yourself. Do your comparisons yourself. Go out and find what your car sells for brand new, a car just like yours with the same mileage. You can look on any website and find it, and say, look here, here's what my car sells for. Then you take your car or call a dealer and say, look here, my car had $10,000 worth of damage to it. How much are you going to knock me when you see that my car has had this damage when it pops up when I go to trade it? Well, they'll say, well, we'll knock off this, this, and this. So
Yep.
you record that number, give it to your insurance company, and they all know they owe it, but they're not going to pay you if you don't ask for it. You won't
Yeah.
never get nothing you won't ask for. So, like I
Yeah.
said
They're not.
earlier, tell people, don't be scared, don't be timid, don't be shy. Ask for it. All they can do, you'll never get nothing if you don't ask for it.
Right.
You know.
Well, Johnny, thanks. I really
All
appreciate
right,
coming
bud.
on, and yeah, I'll I'll put this out there, and if there are any questions, I'll let you know. If a lot of the time in the comments,
Yeah.
you'll get some questions,
Yeah.
and then I can aggregate them and do another episode as
Mhm.
well.